Welcome back, folks. I'm coming to you live from Austria and an Interbourse event. That's, of course, as I told you yesterday, a bourse is an exchange, and these exchanges get together once a year for ski racing, networking, and a lot of great business. But we're going to be talking about the sort of business that goes on at the Fed as soon as, I guess about 2 o'clock hits today, Eastern time today, Pete. So we've got the 411 for you ahead of that on today's Rebel's Edge.
And we're off.
Bang.
You know, it's been working out pretty decent, actually, John. The reception's been most often pretty good. So that's been great. It is an amazing thing, but it's great. It's great that you're out there with this. How many years? I was trying to tell somebody the other day how many years you've been a part of this Interbourse thing.
Let's see. I started, Pete, in 94. And 94 and 95, I was there. We had the Cincinnati Exchange, which the CBOE owned the majority of, sponsored our team back then. And then I was raising the kids and all that kind of stuff. And I didn't come back until like 2015. So there's a big break, like 20-year break. But it's great to be back with these guys. Now I think I've been here, basically 10 years in a row. And this is the 57th annual ski race and get together, networking and all that here in Austria this year. Next year, Pete, it'll be in Courchevel, France.
Oh, nice.
And so maybe you'll have to trot on over for that.
Sounds good to me.
Well, let's see what else sounds good to Pete, folks, because the S&P 500 jumped over 7,000 today for the first time in history. And then we've got the Fed meeting. That's coming our way today at 2 o'clock, as I said. Pete, what do you think of those graphics I've got there of the chances of today's meeting being a big nothing burger, but maybe by June we start getting some cuts?
You think it's not till June? Wow. You're probably right.
I think it could be before that.
Okay.
This is what the CME tool is saying.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing, John, and that tool is what everybody now uses as the standard of measurement, right? I mean, it makes sense, and it's been, when you look at those percentages, 97%, I would say that it's close enough to 100% for all of us, I would say. So it'll be interesting to see, John. When I look at this whole thing, and you mentioned the S&P hitting 7,000, how about gold hitting 5,300? How about silver on the run that thing has been on? You know, it's funny because I've been on with our good friend Oliver Rennick out there at the CBOE Global, and I was on there again yesterday, and I said, look, it ain't over. And clearly it's not. But I told him, I said, it's not over. If the buyers of all these options that we see keep on coming in on GLD every day, and some of them 6 digits in terms of the numbers that they're buying, we're talking like 137,000 of these and 110,000 of those and whatever. Pretty amazing to see what's going on there. And of course, silver, I mean, that's been ripping like nobody's business. And we've been seeing SLV. We've seen some of the miners as well, but that has been something that has been in front of us now probably for, I know some people have said a month and a half, 2 months. I'd go all the way back. I'd say it's been damn near been going for about the last 6-8 months or so, where we've seen this activity and we're seeing more and more of it just going up, up, up. The elevation has been unbelievable, almost as good at the elevation as where you're skiing, as a matter of fact.
There you go. Tie that in. All right. Well, how about the VIX, Pete? It's not surprising that ahead of, even though it's mainly known, as Pete just broke down for you, what's going to happen using the CME, which is basically measuring real money flows, not just people's opinions. But the uncertainty is what Jerome Powell might say, Pete. And for that reason, we're kind of lifting a little bit in the volatility.
And it makes a lot of sense. It's what he's going to say. It's how the president's probably going to react to it as well, because we know that he will. And it makes for a pretty interesting thing. We've been in this range, 1550, call it to 1650. We've been stuck in that for a while. Today, we've kind of broken out a little bit for all the reasons you just said. So this could very easily pull right back down unless Jerome goes the direction that the president doesn't find all that great. And then that 17 or thereabouts where it is right now, it's like 1695 or something, John. Then that could get a little bit of a boost. So we'll see how that all plays out. But yeah, the VIX has been pretty daggone accurate as well. And it's just one more measure that we always like to look at each and every day.
Absolutely. Well, prediction exchange today, Pete, this Moonbirds token, basically people are betting on Polymarket that is it going to be over 50 million, over 100 million in market value, or over 200 million? And it's pretty much certain that it's going to be over 100. They're also pretty certain, 95% chance over 100, and about a 67% chance that this token on the first day of trade goes over 200. And I'm hearing 220 right now, Pete, for a market cap on this one. So again, it's Moonbirds FDV is how you take a look and see where this one ends up. But wow, it's a big NFT collection, non-fungible tokens, and that means they're one of a kind. So we're going to have to keep our eye on it, Pete, but it's just kind of interesting to see people speculating on every little bit of digital assets these days.
Yeah, these poly markets are amazing, and you've done a great job of getting people, I think, more educated on that whole thing. I mean, that, Kelshi, and some of these other things that are out there are, these predictive markets are I mean, it's just one more thing to trade, right? I mean, it gives us one more opportunity, and we're okay with that. That's a good thing.
Absolutely. Well, Starbucks, Pete, let's dive into this one. Starbucks, they report fiscal Q1 results. Those net revenues were almost $10 billion. That's the total net revenue, folks. So that's pretty darn good. And if you take a look at the unusual activity that we had in this name, because we did have it, back in December, it was an $85, $86 stock. And they were already speculating perhaps about these earnings, Pete, that it was going to go considerably higher. Well, 15, 16 bucks. I'd say that's considerably higher. And folks, if you want to follow along with that, you scan that QR code on the screen and you could be trading them just like Pete when you take a look at where the Starbucks has gone over the past month.
Yeah, and you know that they've struggled a little bit. They've changed the backdrop with the CEO and all that type of thing. And has there been some improvement? Yeah, there's definitely been some improvement. They beat on those revenue like you talked about, John. They did miss very slightly, but it's nonetheless a miss on the earnings. Stock was up. It actually got up there over 100. I think it hit maybe close to 101 today, if I'm not mistaken, John. But then it pulled back off of that a little bit. You know, it hadn't been over 100 since March of 2025. So interesting to watch how Starbucks has had a lot of different issues. You know, they didn't quite make it the way that a lot of people expected in terms of, you know, everybody said, well, China's going to be perfect for this thing. And you know what? For a while it was working and then it sort of stopped working. So they've tried to do a lot of different things. They're doing things now as we talk. I mean, they're talking about globally, the store sales up 4%. So that's something pretty good. They talked about the dividend and what that looks like. That looks pretty good. So I think there's some positives here. There's no doubt about that. With a little mix of maybe some of the folks out there that are still pulling on it, John, because it's been kind of easing back since the opening bell, basically. And now here we are back down into the upper 90s. I think 98 is about where it is presently. So we'll see how that all works out. But you know what? They've done a lot of things right. And I think one of those things is bringing in that Brian Nichol, John. He's a heck of a CEO, and he's done a great job in the past. And I think he's starting to get a little bit of something going on for Starbucks.
Well, how about this one then, Pete? Amphenol. These guys are, since you probably don't know, unless you've really been following the stock, these guys are a cable and sensor manufacturer, and they reported stronger than expected Q4 results, and they gave some positive guidance, Pete, Morgan Stanley took their target up from 160 to 185. So that was certainly pretty strong. And overall, I think this one, Amphenol, we had some put activity, and it ended up being right, because even though when we talk about, okay, well, they put up some pretty good numbers, it fell more than 14%, 15%, Pete, right after the open today, just like whack. And, whether it's, even when you're supplying data centers with what they need, because again, cables and sensors, it doesn't mean it's a free ride. People are still going to look at what kind of margins they have and what kind of guidance they're going to give.
Yeah, you know what? That's been the interesting part of the earnings season so far, John. We've seen a lot of charts that look like this particular chart looks, right? Bottom left, upper right in a big way, really impressive. This stock is up 140% in the last year. So you almost maybe think to yourself, well, is there something there where it's gone up a little bit too fast? I mean, we talk about all these various stocks all the time in the AI world, and this, that, and the other, data centers and so forth. And we're constantly looking for, is there still some more upside in there? Is the demand still there? And certainly these guys put up what was a really strong quarter. They also had some really great guidance that they put up there. Record revenue. I mean, it sounds fantastic. I mean, what could possibly be wrong? But I think that maybe what's hurting them just a little bit is the most recent run that they've made. And obviously, you were just talking about it, John, but JP Morgan, they raised that price target from 160 to 185, but they didn't do that today. They did that a couple of days ago. So They were ahead of this whole thing. And I know the stock's getting beat up a little bit today, down 13% or wherever it might be at the moment. But I think that the reality is that there'll probably be some buyers coming back into this name at some point. And what that means to what you were just saying, John, and showing as far as the unusual option activity, those puts, if I had those, I would definitely say, you know what, I'm at least going to get out of a portion of those, if not most of them, because you know what, sometimes you don't want to rest too long. And I know they're Aprils, but I'll tell you what, at any moment, this stock, based upon all the numbers that we saw, could easily start to pull right back up and start moving to the upside again.
Yeah, like I say, they're in the right space.
Yep.
It's just a question of, if you miss a little bit even of what the analysts are expecting you to give going forward, doesn't matter what Jamie Dimon and JP Morgan say in the short term.
Yeah.
If you're a long-term trader, then you're still feeling pretty good. All right. Speaking of pretty good, Pete, Seagate Technology.
Cool.
So Seagate, basically storage. When you think of storage, you think of Seagate, or at least you should. And today, Pete, they slammed up to a new 52-week high. And right now, they're not up 5, they're not up 10%. They're up just shy of 20% today. And they're the number one stock among the S&P 500 in terms of that kind of a move today. The company reported stronger than expected results. And the result is exactly what you're looking at there, folks, 20% to the upside.
Seagate, Micron, some of these names that are out there, John, Western Digital, they're all in their own little category or whatever, but absolutely amazing. I mean, you just talked about it, but I mean, this is one where wherever I look, what's wrong with this? Nothing. I mean, the demand is there. They're absolutely executing. You just talked about the new highs, $442 a share or more. Who knows now? Up 300+% over the last year. That's pretty daggone impressive. Their revenue was up 22% year over year. Another great number. You look at the earnings and what they expect in the next quarter, 340. They were looking for 299. That's another one. So there's nowhere you can look on this one where you'd say, you know what, I can poke a little hole in this. But you're not going to be able to do that with Seagate, just like you weren't able to do that, I don't think, in my opinion anyway, with Micron and some of these other names. Like you said, it was up early and it's gone higher. I mean, the last I looked, John, maybe 10, 15 minutes ago, whatever it was up about 14, 15%, maybe 16%. And like you just said, here we are at now 20%. Storage is a big deal. It really is a big deal. And Seagate is one of the kings there. So I think that they are still in the right spot, right time. And I think they've still got some runway in front of them into the future.
Well, let's talk about another one that might have that same kind of runway, Pete.
Yeah.
Next Power.
Yeah.
Because Next Power has put up some pretty impressive numbers as well. They were up as much as 22% on the highs today. That was the early Wednesday trade. Now, solar equipment, you want to talk about a volatile sector. Solar, partially because of the president, and he's not been a big fan of wind and solar and all that as far as the subsidies, EVs and all that. As you know, if you looked at buying a new car, he took those EV credits away. So these guys, a solar player, little bit of a head scratcher for some perhaps, but if you're able to really truly provide what people want, because people do want solar and they would like, some storage for that solar power as well. This company does that, NXT. And right now, I think they're holding on to about 14 or 15% gain, Pete.
Yep. That's another one where you look at the chart says it, kind of says it all, John. I mean, these guys have some incredible gross profits that are out there. It's up 20% year over year. That's a hell of a nice number. They beat on the earnings. They raised the guidance. I mean, you know what? Another one where it's tough to poke any holes into this whole thing. The demand is there. John, what stands out for me on this one too, and it kind of folds right back to something we've been talking about, which is silver. Silver is a big part of what's going on in the solar world, and you know what? It's being used in so many different ways that I don't even think most people really totally understand how much silver is in demand. But when you're talking about the data centers or the massive chips and all the rest of it, your silver is a part of all of that. And so I'm looking at this one, and one of the things that stood out for me, John, was when it said the record backlog. Well, that says a lot about these guys. These guys are ready to probably take off. They've taken off already, but could they go a little bit further? Well, yeah, I'm not saying today, and I'm not saying tomorrow or the next day. I'm just saying they still are sitting in a really good spot where this is a stock that certainly could have much more upside, I think, into the future, even though it's maybe in a category that not everybody's all that hot on or whatever with solar. But I would say that everything that I'm looking at in terms of these numbers, John, looks pretty damn good to me.
All right. Well, let's switch gears and go on over to sports, Pete, because speaking of looking good to Pete, here are, I found these today, top 5 most athletic plays in the NFL. And I think you guys can judge, of course, and agree or disagree, but we'll put them up on the screen here for you and see what you think as far as the athleticism displayed by these players, whether it's hurdling somebody or keeping your balance or staying in bounds or whatever it might be. So let's take a look.
Look at the stride on that guy.
Well, look at him, Pete. Look at DK Metcalf.
Now that is impressive. DK Metcalf weighs what, about 240? Something like that.
That's a big man.
Oh.
How about that one, Pete?
He never hit. How great is that? Those running backs in Seattle are pretty amazing. They really are. They got 2 of them.
How about this one, Dante Hall? I mean, look at that.
And I'll tell you what, nobody's going to catch it.
Yeah, I mean, you miss him here, and then watch the one linebacker, Pete.
Oh.
Boom! He takes his own guy out.
That is amazing. Barkley's always been. I mean,
and Barkley's hurdle right
he's a
into
freak.
the
Backwards. Tell you what, that guy's special. He really is. Philadelphia shouldn't keep blowing it.
And how about that flip at the end there?
Unreal. It is unreal. That was pretty impressive. All right. So, John, we have Super Bowl is set up. We know where we're going. We've got the New England Patriots. We got the Seattle Seahawks. Not the teams that at the beginning of the season anybody would have probably called for. But, man, did they do it during the season. But I wanted to show you something that I don't think a lot of people are looking at. At least I haven't heard anybody talking about this. But I did a little bit of breakdown. So Drake May is having problems right now. And you know what? We like them. They've done a great job. They're winning. So everybody's kind of like, oh, yeah, everything's hunky-dory. It might not be, especially with that Seattle defense, John. But here's what I was looking at. 72% during the season, that's his completion. 31 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, and he's been sacked on average about 2.5 sacks per game. So his offensive line's given up a little bit. In the postseason, they only had 3 games. In the postseason, 56 completion percentage, 56 completion percentage from a 72. They got 4 touchdowns, and he's got 2 interceptions. So he's really kind of dragging a little bit, and it might be because of the fact that in these 3 games that he's played in so far, he's been sacked 15 times. So that kind of makes me wonder about, all right, is the O-line doing what they need to be doing, and is he doing what he needs to be doing? Because from 72% completion to 56, that's a pretty steep drop once you get into the playoffs. Meanwhile, I'm taking a look at Sam Darnold. And not only has he had a magical year, John, but during the season, 67%, he's thrown 25 touchdowns. He's also thrown 14 interceptions. The interceptions are concerning. But now we've gotten into the postseason, right? 2.5 sacks is what he's had per game so far. 0 interceptions, 4 touchdowns, and he's gone from 67% completion to 70% completion. I mean, the guy has made a complete turn. And on top of all of that, right now, the way things stand, Darnold leading that offense for Seattle, averaging 36 points per game in the postseason. You know how many they're averaging out there with New England? 18. 18. So I'm not saying that that's going to keep on playing out the way it has so far. But I'll tell you this, who's one of the most unbelievable defenses this year? It's Seattle. They got a golden gopher on their defensive line too, by the way, who's done a really good job for you. But anyway, unbelievable, John. What do you think about this? Does it matter? Does it matter that he's been struggling? Drake May, that is, and they're not putting up the same kind of points that they were during the season. And meanwhile, Seattle's exploded on what they're doing scoring wise, and they've got that defense.
Well, to your point, Pete, the really concerning thing is the New England offensive line, because just like with Caleb Williams last year for the Bears, when he was sacked 68 times, if your quarterback is getting sacked a lot, and this is double, as you already said, what his normal sacking was. In other words, perhaps the offensive line is beat up, Pete. Perhaps his receivers aren't doing what they need to do. Because if a quarterback's taking sacks, one of those 2 things is what's happening. The offensive line is a sieve, or the combination of the offensive line not doing well and the receivers not getting to the open spot on the field. Because you can't just run the pattern if there's a guy standing where the quarterback's going to need to deliver the ball. You're going to have to break your pattern off a little bit or whatever. And I don't know if that's the case, that they've been doing a good job at that. But I do know that, as you said, you can't go from 2.5 sacks to 5 sacks a game and have your quarterback completion rather, go down to 46%. You're less than 50-50 on your passes, and you're throwing interceptions, and you're getting sacked, and you're going to go up against the best defense that there is in the league right now. I think we both know what's likely to happen a week from Sunday.
And John, I corrected myself, but it's 56%. So it's still basically a 50-50 throw. Yep. But I did say
right around. It's too damn close to 50-50.
Yep. I agree with you. By the way, I think we got to follow this one up, John. We talked about Nebraska and all the great things that are happening. Unfortunately for them and for us, because it's been a fun thing to watch, they finally got beat. But they went to number 3 Michigan in Ann Arbor, and they were up 50-48 in the first half. 50, that's a lot of points, man, in college ball for a half. And then in the second half, Michigan outscored them 27-22. So Michigan beat them by 3. 75-72 was the final. And they finally have their loss. But I'll tell you what, Hoiberg, our former Bull, let me tell you, that guy's press conference afterwards was phenomenal. He talked about, how good Michigan is, everything else, but also the mistakes that they made that he can correct, and they're going to do this, that, and the other. And let's not, they didn't get blown out. I mean, this is Nebraska again. And meanwhile, these guys, they fought like dogs. They just didn't quite get there at the very end. So that was kind of fun. I thought we should follow up that one. Jon, as far as this year's draft, it's great because everybody's got their mock drafts. They're already starting to work on that whole thing. And you and I followed Mel Kiper forever. That guy's a classic. Absolutely. I mean, lives, breathes, sleeps, does everything about the draft and about football during the season, but specifically of the draft. He is the guy that everybody loves to go to. He's great. There's a guy that I think could be a major league sleeper that as of right now, he's probably not even projected anywhere compared to a lot of the quarterbacks. And there's a lot of good ones, I think, this year, Jon. A lot of people are saying, well, it's not the same kind of quarterback class. Well, maybe. I still think that there's probably 3-4 really, really good quarterbacks in there. And maybe this kid from North Dakota State is one of them. And I say that because, people just don't always respect the whole FCS and all the rest of this type of thing and whatever. But I've always paid attention to North Dakota State, South Dakota State. These guys are unbelievably great athletes that sometimes just were looked over. Montana's got them as well. You go around the country, you can find more and more where you've got guys that are absolutely amazing, and maybe they matured later or whatever. But Cole Payton, and he's out of Nebraska, Jon, 6'3", 233-pound quarterback for North Dakota State. He's had a few injuries here and there, so this was his first year where he basically played every single play and every single game. And 29 total touchdowns. He ran for 13 of them. He threw for 16 of them, and he's had 4 interceptions. The guy's big. He's strong. I'll tell you what, somebody out there ought to take a long look at this guy. And I'm not saying he's a first rounder, and I'm not saying he's above the other 5 or 6 or 8 that might be in front of him right now, but I just think it's pretty cool. And as we get closer to the combine, which is not that far away, right now they're all dealing with the Senior Bowl and all that. And so we're seeing all this stuff being played out, and ESPN covers it and everything else. But I think this Cole Payton is really pretty special, Jon. After watching what those guys do at North Dakota State, South Dakota State, and all those, I mean, all they do is win. I mean, they're basically consent. All I do is win. Google me. I mean, that's what these guys should say. That should be on the North Dakota State, like when they've got a recruiting reel, they should have something like that, Jon. But have you got a chance to see this kid? I've had a chance to watch him in their one of their games this past year. I think it was a playoff game. They're special. And that kid can throw the ball the length of the damn field practically. I mean, he's a big son of a gun. Do you think that the NFL is smart enough to say, you know what, let's watch this guy a lot closer than we have in the past?
Well, they probably will for just to give Pete credit where it's due. When Pete was doing games for NBC Sports and ESPN, he was doing in-game stuff, color commentary, and I remember you talking about Josh Allen. Mm-hmm. Same guy. I'm not saying that they're absolutely equal, but he played at Wyoming, of all places. Wyoming kid that's, 235, 240 pounds, 6'5". There's a lot of similarities here. And this kid's got a big chip on his shoulder, too, because he knows they've overlooked him. And that's what he said about the, the Senior Bowl or whatever, the one that he's playing in now, Pete. He said, I got a chance to change the way they look at me by showing up with all these guys. He was the Walter Payton Award, the third for basically the FCS, folks, has the equivalent of the Heisman. Mm-hmm. No FCS team has ever produced a Heisman quarterback, so they created their own. They created the Walter Payton Award. And this kid was highly thought of. He was a finalist for it. So do I think he'll get a look? I think he'll get a look. I won't be surprised if he gets a good hard look. And basically, Pete, I just looked it up. The combine kicks off February 23rd. So it's not that far off.
It's a month.
And I will be surprised if he's not throwing the ball there, and then we'll have to see exactly what people think of him once they see the height and the weight and, the arm strength and all that stuff.
I like that comparison too, John. And neither one of us are saying he's Josh Allen, but we are saying he's got that physical side to him on top of the fact that he's a damn good quarterback, and he does a really good job back there of finding who the open guys are. And when you've got an arm like he has, you can find guys 60, 70 yards down the field and still launch that ball to them. So, yeah, I think I'm pretty excited for the kid. I love seeing these, quote unquote sleepers. He ain't a sleeper to anybody who's ever watched him, but these quote unquote sleepers, they're fun to watch. And I think he's going to be somebody at the combine who gets talked about a lot.
Cool. Well, along with a couple of those offensive and defensive linemen that are, as your friend from the University of Minnesota would say, Pete, they're pretty salty.
Well, I'll tell you one last thing since you said that. Seattle, first round offensive lineman, North Dakota State is playing there. He's one of the guys that's protecting Sam Darnold and doing a hell of a job, John. North Dakota State kid, first round, not so bad. He's a big son of a gun with a lot of salt.
Yeah, a real salty player for sure. Well, thanks for joining us, folks. We are sorry to say we're not going to be able to bring you the Rebels Edge tomorrow because Pete's got to get down to Miami because we've got that live trading event the 29th and 30th, and Pete's got some special stuff he's got to show up for and all that. But you've got eye connections going on. You've got uncorrelated event going on, Pete. You've got our live trading event going on at the Ritz in South Beach. It's going to be wall-to-wall finance people, as well as, a lot of traders. So can't wait for that. And that's why we can't bring you the show tomorrow, folks. Yep. So we'll see you again Monday, but will it be at the usual time, Pete?
1 p.m. Eastern time, baby. We're ready to rock and roll.
See you then.